The great council chamber of the Zetharian Empire stretched out like a vast silver bowl beneath the purple sky of Zeth Prime. 500 alien delegates filled the curved seats, their various forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes. The center podium stood Ambassador Crystal, his blue scales catching the artificial light as he addressed the crowd. "My fellow beings," Crystal began, his voice carrying through the chamber's perfect acoustics. "We gather today to discuss the growing concerns about the unexplored regions of our galaxy. Reports from our border stations suggest unknown activities in the Outer Rim territories." In the front row, elder historian Vexamore shifted his ancient form. The old Velinary had lived for over 800 years, and his memory contained stories that most considered mere folklore. His 4 eyes blinked slowly as he raised one of his 6 arms. "If I may speak," Vexamore said, his voice thin but clear. "These reports remind me of the old legends, stories of the ones called humans." A ripple of laughter passed through the chamber. Captain Zulkar, of the Zetharian military, stood up, his red armor gleaming. "Respected elder, surely you do not suggest we concern ourselves with children's tales?" Vexamore's eyes focused on the young captain. "These are not children's tales, warrior. They are records from our ancestors. The humans were real. They lived among us over 500 years ago." Dr. Quintel, the lead scientist of the Velinary Research Council, leaned forward. In her seat, her pale skin showed the faint blue veins that marked her species. "Elder Vexamore speaks truth about the records. But the last confirmed human sighting was 493 years ago. Even if they survived, they would be a primitive species by now." The chamber fell quiet as Vexamore stood slowly. His aged body moved carefully to the speaking platform. "Let me share what our ancestors recorded about these beings called humans." He activated the chamber's holographic display. Images flickered to life above the gathered delegates. The first showed a bipedal creature with pale skin and strange fur on its head, stood upright on 2 legs and had only 2 arms, unlike most species in the chamber. "The humans were unusual in many ways," Vexamore began. "They came from a world called Earth, far in the Outer Rim. Their planet was harsh, with extreme weather and dangerous creatures, yet they not only survived, but thrived." The images changed to show scenes of war. Small human figures fought against larger alien warriors. Despite being outnumbered and outgunned, the humans seemed to find ways to win. "They were adaptable beyond belief," the elder continued. "Place a human in a desert, and they would learn to find water where none existed. Put them in ice, and they would make fire from nothing. Give them a problem, and they would find 3 different solutions." Captain Zulkar snorted. "Pretty stories, elder. But where are these wonderful humans now? If they were so great, why did they disappear?" The old historian's eyes dimmed with sadness. "Because we were afraid of them. The great powers of that time formed an alliance. They decided that humans were too dangerous to exist near civilized space. The humans were given a choice: submit to strict control or leave forever. They chose to leave," Dr. Quintel said quietly. "The records show they gathered their people and ships and headed for the unknown regions." "Yes," Vexamore nodded. "They said they would rather face the darkness of space than give up their freedom." The last message from their leader was simple: "We will remember, and we will return when we are strong enough to stand as equals." Ambassador Crystal cleared his throat. "These are fascinating historical notes, but we face current problems. Our monitoring stations report massive energy signatures from the Terran Quadrant. Unknown ships. Unknown technology." Commander Yixara of the Korathon Trade Union spoke up. Her insect-like features clicked as she talked. "My merchant ships have detected strange transmissions from that region. The language is unknown, but the signals are organized and purposeful." The chamber's main screen activated, showing a star map. Red dots marked the locations of recent unusual activity. All the dots formed a rough line pointing toward inhabited space. "Whatever is out there," Captain Zulkar said, "it is moving toward us. Our military advisors recommend we prepare defenses." Dr. Quintel studied the data on her personal device. "The energy patterns are unlike anything in our databases. Technology appears to be a fusion of known physics and something entirely new." "How many ships?" asked General Dekvar, of the Zendar collective, of his hive mind. "Unknown," replied Ambassador Crickstall. "Our sensors can detect energy signatures, but cannot get clear images. Whatever they are using for shields is beyond our current understanding." Elder Veximer looked up from the star map, the Terran quadrant. "That is where the humans went. That is the direction they traveled when they left us." "Cannot be serious," Captain Zolkar said. "Even if some humans survived, they would be using primitive technology. Ships made of metal and chemical rockets. Would they?" Veximer asked quietly. "The legends say they were the most adaptable species ever encountered. What might they have learned in 500 years of exile?" The chamber erupted in debate. Voices rose in a dozen different languages as delegates argued about the possibility. Some laughed at the idea of legendary humans returning. Others worried about unknown threats from deep space. Admiral Zinthera of the Luminous Forces floated near the ceiling, her energy form pulsing with thought. "If these are humans, we should remember why our ancestors feared them. They did not fight like civilized beings. They used tactics that defied logic." "Okay, impossible tactics," agreed Commander Yixara. "The records speak of human soldiers who would sacrifice themselves to save others, who would fight hopeless battles simply because they believed it was right." Dr. Quintal pulled up more historical data. "Psychological profiles from first contact are disturbing. Humans showed emotional responses that our experts could not predict. They would become more dangerous when cornered, not less. They also showed mercy to defeated enemies," Veximer added, "even those who had tried to destroy them." This confused our military leaders greatly. The debate continued for hours. Some delegates insisted that whatever was coming from the Outer Rim had to be a new species entirely. The idea that humans had not only survived, but potentially grown stronger was too frightening to accept. Finally, Chamber's communication system activated with an emergency signal. A technician rushed to Ambassador Crickstall's side and whispered urgently in his ear. The ambassador's blue scales paled to almost white. "Delegates," Crickstall announced, his voice strained. "We have intercepted a transmission from the approaching fleet." The chamber fell completely silent. Every being focused on the main screen as static filled the air. Then, through the noise, came a voice speaking in clear galactic standard. "This is Admiral Jake Murphy of the United Earth Fleet. We have been monitoring your discussions about our return. We are 3 days away from your border stations. We come seeking dialogue, but we are prepared for any response you choose to give." The transmission continued, and the voice grew stronger. "The Galactic Council, know this. We are no longer the humans you remember. Exile has taught us much. We have grown, we have learned, and we have built something new among the stars." There was a pause, then the final words that would haunt the dreams of every delegate present. "We are coming home." The transmission ended, leaving the chamber in absolute silence. Elder Vexamor looked around at the shocked faces of his fellow beings and spoke the words they were all thinking. The legends were true. The humans have returned, and we are about to discover what 500 years of exile has made them become. Border Station Omega-7 floated in the empty space between star systems like a metal flower blooming in the darkness. The station served as a meeting point for different species, a place where diplomatic talks could happen without favoring any one government. Today, it would witness something that had not occurred for over 500 years. Commander Lisa Torres stood on the bridge of her ship, the UES Pioneer, watching the alien station grow larger on her screen. Behind her, 11 other Earth vessels held formation in perfect order. Each ship looked different from the others, as if they had been built by different civilizations and then modified with unknown technology. Commander called Lieutenant Dan Price from his position at the communication station. "The alien representatives are requesting permission to board." Torres nodded, her brown hair catching the bridge lights. She wore a simple blue uniform that looked both familiar and strange. The material seemed to shift slightly in the light, as if it were alive. "Grant permission, Lieutenant, and remind them that we have been watching their broadcasts for 3 centuries. We know their languages and customs." On the station, Ambassador Kelson of the Velinary prepared for what might be the most important meeting in galactic history. His pale hands shook slightly as he adjusted his formal robes. Beside him stood Captain Morgeth of the Zetharian fleet, his red armor polished to perfection. "Remember," Kelson said quietly, "these may be the legendary humans. We must be careful not to provoke them." Captain Morgeth laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Legends do not frighten warriors, Ambassador. They wish to rejoin civilized space. They will follow our rules." The airlock opened with a soft hiss, and 3 figures stepped through. The aliens had expected to see primitive beings in rough clothing, perhaps carrying simple weapons. Instead, they faced humans who looked perfectly comfortable in the advanced environment of the station. Commander Torres led the group. Behind her walked Captain Ryan Blake, a tall man with dark skin and calm eyes, and Dr. Amy Foster, a woman with red hair who carried a device that neither alien recognized. "Ambassador Kelson," Torres said in perfect galactic standard, her pronunciation better than most native speakers. "Captain Morgeth, thank you for agreeing to meet with us." Kelson S. 4 eyes widened in shock. "You speak our language." "We speak all galactic languages," Torres replied with a slight smile. "We have had a long time to listen and learn." They moved to the station's main conference room, a circular space with a transparent dome showing the stars above. Torres activated a small device on her wrist, and holographic displays filled the air around the table. "These are our current territories," she explained, gesturing to a 3-dimensional star map. 12 solar systems appeared in the display, each marked with dozens of planets and stations. "We have been busy during our exile," Captain Morgeth studied the display with growing concern. "Impossible. These systems are in the death zones. No life can survive there." Dr. Foster spoke for the first time, her voice carrying a slight accent that neither alien could identify. "Life is more adaptable than your species believe, Captain. We have learned to thrive in environments that would kill most beings in minutes." Touched her device, and the display changed to show images of human colonies. Ice worlds where cities existed beneath protective domes. Desert planets where humans had built underground networks. Gas giant mining stations that floated in crushing atmospheres. "Each colony represents a different solution to survival," Foster continued. "When you forced us into exile, you sent us to places where no sane being would try to live. We made them home." Ambassador Kelson leaned forward, his scientific mind fascinated despite his fear. "How is this possible? The radiation levels alone should have killed you." Torres and Blake exchanged a look. Blake nodded and rolled up his sleeve, revealing skin that seemed to shimmer with tiny silver patterns. "We found things in the outer rim," Blake said simply. "Ancient ruins. Technology left behind by those who came before. We learned to adapt it to make it part of ourselves." "Impossible," breathed Kelson. "The neural interface technology required for such integration would destroy organic brain tissue." Dr. Foster smiled, an expression that somehow seemed both kind and dangerous. "You are thinking like your species, Ambassador. You try to force technology to bend to your will. We learn to grow with it, to become partners rather than masters." Demonstrated by placing her hand on the conference table, the surface began to glow, and suddenly the entire room filled with detailed displays showing human technology. Ships that seemed to bend space around them, weapons that adapted their energy signatures in real time, medical equipment that worked. At the cellular level, Captain Morgeth stood abruptly, his hand moving toward his weapon. "This is some kind of trick. No species could advance so far in only 5 centuries." Torres remained seated, but something in her posture changed. Blake and Foster also grew very still, and suddenly the air in the room felt heavy with unspoken threat. Captain Torres said quietly, "I suggest you sit down." "I do not take orders from primitives," Morgeth snarled, drawing his energy pistol. "What happened next would be talked about in military academies for generations." Torres moved faster than either alien thought possible. One moment she was sitting calmly. The next she stood beside Morgeth, with his weapon in her hand. The Zetharian captain had not even seen her move. "As I said," Torres repeated, placing the weapon gently on the table. "Please sit down." Morjith collapsed into his chair, staring at the human woman who had just demonstrated that 5 centuries of exile had created something far beyond the species he remembered. "Now then," Torres continued, as if nothing had happened, "let us discuss why we have returned." Blake activated another display, this one showing star charts of the region between human space and the galactic core. "We know about the recent conflicts, the Corathon trade wars, the Zendar expansion, the resource shortages that threaten several systems." "How could you know about these things?" Kelson asked, his voice barely a whisper. "We never stopped watching," Dr. Foster replied. "Every broadcast, every transmission, every piece of data that crossed space, we have been learning about you." "While you forgot about us?" Torres stood and walked to the dome, looking out at the stars. "We could have returned with force. Our technology is far beyond what you remember. Our fleets could sweep aside your defenses before you knew we were there." She turned back to face the aliens. "Damn. But that is not why we came back. We want something that cannot be taken by force." "What?" Kelson asked. "Recognition, respect, the right to exist as equals in this galaxy." Captain Morjith found his voice again. "You were exiled for good reason. Your species is unpredictable. Dangerous." Blake smiled, an expression that was somehow more frightening than anger would have been. "Captain, we are far more dangerous now than we were 500 years ago. But we are also far more disciplined." Conference room's communication. "System activated with an urgent signal." A Zetharian voice spoke rapidly in their native language, reporting that a massive fleet had just appeared at the edge of sensor range. Torres listened to the report with perfect understanding, then looked at the shocked aliens. That would be Admiral Murphy with the main armada. "We told you we were just the advanced scouts." "How many ships?" Morgith demanded. "Enough," Blake replied simply. Dr. Foster gathered her equipment. "Gentlemen, you have a choice to make. You can treat this as first contact between equals, or you can repeat the mistakes your ancestors made 5 centuries ago." Torres moved toward the airlock. "We will give you time to contact your governments, but understand this. We are no longer the humans you remember. Exile has made us stronger, smarter, and far more capable than the beings you once feared." She paused at the doorway. "The galaxy has 3 days to decide how it wants to proceed. After that, Admiral Murphy will make the decision for everyone." As the humans left, Ambassador Kelson and Captain Morjith sat in stunned silence. Finally, the Velinary diplomat spoke. "The legends were wrong about one thing." "What?" Morjith asked. "They made the humans sound dangerous. They never mentioned that they would become terrifying." Outside the station, the 12 human ships began to move. In formation, heading back toward the darkness where something vast and powerful waited among the stars. The edge of Zetharian space had never seen anything like it. Where empty darkness had existed 3 days ago, now stretched a fleet so vast that sensor operators could not count all the ships. They came in waves appearing from beyond the detection, ranged like ghosts materializing from the void. Admiral Jake Murphy stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching the alien response fleets gather ahead of them. His gray hair and weathered face told the story of 50 years spent in the Outer Rim, building something the galaxy had never imagined possible. "Report, Captain Rogers," Murphy said to the man beside him. Captain Ben Rogers consulted his displays, his hands moving over controls that seemed to respond to his thoughts rather than his touch. 3,247 ships in formation, Admiral. All systems running at optimal efficiency. The enemy has assembled approximately 800 vessels from 5 different species." Murphy nodded slowly. The numbers told the story clearly enough. The aliens had managed to gather the largest combined fleet in galactic history, yet they were still outnumbered 4-1. Signal from the alien command ship, Admiral reported Lieutenant Carol Webb from the communication station. "They are requesting that we halt our advance and submit to inspection." "Inspection?" Murphy repeated, a slight smile crossing his face. "After 500 years, they still think they can give us orders." Behind them, the massive fleet moved. In perfect formation, Ships of every size and design filled the space between the stars. Some looked familiar, built along the lines of old Earth vessels. Others defied explanation, their shapes suggesting technologies that bent the basic rules of physics. Engineer Katie Wells looked up from her station, her fingers dancing over displays that showed the condition of the entire Armada. Ships. Report ready for whatever comes next, Admiral. Okay, the new armor systems are fully active, and the adaptive weapons are online. Murphy walked to the main view screen, studying the alien formations ahead. They arranged themselves in the old patterns. Rigid lines, predetermined positions. They have not learned much in our absence. The communication system activated again, and this time a familiar voice filled the bridge. Admiral Murphy, this is Admiral Zinthera of the Luminous Forces. Represent the combined authority of all galactic governments. You will stop your advance and prepare to be boarded. Murphy gestured to Lieutenant Webb, who opened a channel. Admiral Zinthera, this is Jake Murphy. I remember you from the old days. You were just a minor officer when my grandfather served. In the Galactic Fleet, there was a long pause from the alien commander. Your grandfather served our forces. Before the exile, yes, he believed in cooperation between species. He was disappointed when your governments chose fear over friendship. Captain Rogers stepped forward. Admiral, they are powering weapons systems. Ships in their formation are moving to combat readiness. Murphy turned to address his bridge. Crew, ladies and gentlemen, it appears our former neighbors wish to test whether the legends about us are true. Shall we show them what 5 centuries of necessity has taught us? Dr. Carl Hayes, the fleet's chief medical officer, looked up from his mobile unit. Admiral, I have reports from the colony ships. The families are secure and protected. We can proceed without concern for civilian casualties. Good, Murphy replied. Signal the fleet. We will demonstrate our capabilities, but only enough to make our point clear. Lieutenant Webb sent the orders through the quantum communication network that linked every human ship. The response was immediate. Across the vast Armada, vessels began to change. The alien sensors, watching from a distance, recorded impossible readings. Human ships that had appeared solid began to phase in and out of normal space. Energy signatures fluctuated in patterns that violated known physics. Weapon systems activated that registered as both matter and energy simultaneously. Colonel Steve Baker led the first demonstration from his position aboard the EU's Harmony. His ship, barely the size of an alien cruiser, moved forward alone toward the assembled alien fleet. This is Colonel Baker to Alien Command, he broadcast. We will now show you why the legends spoke of human unpredictability. What happened next would be studied by military analysts for decades. The Harmony began to move in ways that defied every rule of space combat. It twisted through dimensions that most species could not even perceive, appearing and disappearing. Around the alien formation, as it moved, the ship fired weapons that adapted to each target individually. Energy beams that shifted frequency to match shield harmonics. Projectiles that changed composition while in flight to exploit armor weaknesses. Defensive systems that learned from each attack and became stronger. Admiral Zinthara watched from her command ship as her carefully planned formation fell apart. Impossible. No single ship could do this. It is not just one ship, replied her tactical officer, his voice filled with fear. Our sensors showed that every human vessel is capable of the same performance. Colonel Baker's voice came over the communication system again. Admiral, we have disabled your weapons without harming your crews. This was a demonstration of restraint, not weakness. Looking at her tactical displays, Zinthara saw that he spoke the truth. Every ship in her fleet showed disabled weapon systems, but no hull damage and no casualties. The humans had surgically removed their ability to fight without killing anyone. Back on the Defiance, Admiral Murphy opened a general communication channel to all the alien ships. Commanders of the Galactic Fleet, you came here expecting to find the humans you remember from your history books. We understand your caution. He paused, allowing his words to reach every ship in both fleets. But we are no longer those humans. Exile has taught us lessons that peace could not. We have learned to survive where no life should exist. We have learned to adapt to any challenge. Most importantly, we have learned that strength without wisdom is worthless. Captain Rogers showed Murphy the tactical analysis. Sir, their formation is completely broken. They cannot offer effective resistance if we choose to advance. We will not advance, Murphy replied firmly. We came here to talk, not to conquer. Engineer Wells looked up from her displays. Admiral, I am receiving private communications from several alien ships. Their engineers want to know how our technology works. Murphy smiled. Tell them that knowledge earned through suffering cannot simply be given away. It must be learned. Through experience, Dr. Hayes moved to the Admiral's side. Sir, the medical scanners show high stress levels among the alien crews. They are genuinely frightened. As they should be, Murphy replied. Fear can lead to wisdom, if they choose to learn from it. The communication system activated again, and Admiral Zinthara's voice carried a tone of defeat. Admiral Murphy, what do you want from us? Murphy looked out at the stars where his ancestors had once served alongside these same species. What we have always wanted, Admiral. The right to exist as equals. The right to live without fear of persecution. Right to take our place among the civilized worlds of the galaxy. And if we refuse? The bridge fell silent. Murphy considered his answer carefully, knowing that his words would determine the future of human-alien relations. Then we will return to the Outer Rim and continue building our civilization alone. But understand this, we will not be exiled. Again, the next time we meet, it will be on our terms entirely. He gestured to Captain Rogers, who began the process of withdrawing the human fleet to a safe distance. You have 7 days to make your decision, Murphy concluded. After that, we will assume that you have chosen to repeat the mistakes of the past. As the human armada pulled back, leaving the alien forces alone with their disabled weapons and shattered formation. One thing was clear to everyone present. The legends were true, but they had only told half the story. The humans had returned, and they were everything the myths promised and more. The Kepler Nebula twisted through space like a living thing, its purple and gold clouds hiding dangers that had claimed hundreds of ships over the centuries. Electrical storms danced between the gas formations, while gravity wells appeared and disappeared without warning. It was the perfect place for the galaxy's most important military test. Colonel. Patricia Kim studied the nebula from the bridge of the Hughes Lightning, one of only 20 human ships selected for the exercise. Round her stretched the massive alien fleet, over 2,000 vessels from every major species in the galaxy. The plan was simple. The humans would enter the nebula first, and the aliens would follow to observe their tactics under impossible conditions. Remember, Colonel Kim told her crew, they think the nebula will level the playing field. They believe our advanced technology will be useless in there. Commander Nick Foster, leading the Marine contingent, checked his equipment one final time. Colonel, my teams are ready. We have prepared for every scenario the nebula might throw at us. Lieutenant Colonel Julie Adams nodded from her position at the tactical station. All ships report ready. The nebula may block our long-range communications, but our quantum links will still function. Outside the human formation, Admiral Zinthara watched from her command ship. She had convinced the other galactic leaders that this test would reveal the truth about human capabilities. In the nebula, with its energy storms and spatial distortions, surely the humans would be reduced to fighting like any other species. Begin the exercise. She transmitted to all ships. The human vessels moved forward into the swirling clouds of the Kepler Nebula. Immediately, their sensors began reporting problems. Navigation systems struggled with the shifting gravity fields. Communication systems fought against electromagnetic interference. Weapon targeting became nearly impossible as the nebula's energy played havoc with electronic systems. But the humans did not panic. Instead, they began to adapt. Captain Alex Wright, commanding the Youth Phoenix, was the first to discover the nebula's secret. All ships, this is right. The nebula is not just random chaos. There are patterns here, rhythms we can use. He demonstrated by flying his ship through what appeared to be a solid wall of energy. Instead of being destroyed, the Phoenix emerged. On the other side, using the nebula's own power to boost its speed, Colonel Kim smiled as she watched the tactical display. All units follow Captain Wright's lead. The nebula is not our enemy. It is a tool. The alien observers watched in amazement as the human ships began to dance through the dangerous formations, where other species would have struggled to survive. The humans turned the nebula into their allied commander. Foster led his Marines in boarding exercises against simulated targets hidden in the gas clouds. His teams moved through environments that would kill most beings in seconds, their equipment adapting to each new challenge they encountered. The key, Foster explained over the communication system, is not to fight the environment. We learn from it, work with it, become part of it. Dr. Simon Clark, the fleet's chief scientist, made the most important discovery. Deep within the nebula, his sensors detected something that should not exist. Ancient technology, still active after millions of years. Colonel Kim Clark reported, "I am reading massive energy signatures from the nebula's core. Something is activating down there." Before Kim could respond, the nebula around them began to change. The random energy storms suddenly became organized, focused. Warning signals echoed from every ship as automated defense systems, older than any known civilization, came online. All ships, this is Admiral Zinthara, came the transmission from outside the nebula. "We are detecting massive power buildups. You must evacuate immediately." But it was too late. Ancient weapons began firing at everything within the nebula, alien and human alike. The aliens' rigid command structure prevented quick adaptation to the new threat. Their ships, built for conventional warfare, could not handle the unpredictable attacks from technology they did not understand. Colonel Kim made a decision that would define humanity's reputation for generations. All human vessels, priority. Override. We are switching from exercise to rescue operations. Lieutenant Colonel Adams asked, "What about the test?" "The test can wait," Kim replied firmly. "People are dying." What followed was a display of human values that shocked every alien observer. Instead of fleeing to safety, the human ships dove deeper into the nebula to reach the trapped alien vessels. Captain Wright led a desperate rescue mission to save a Zetherian cruiser that was caught in the ancient weapons targeting system. His ship took severe damage, but he managed to create a shield barrier that protected the alien vessel long enough for it to escape. Commander Foster organized boarding parties that crossed from human ships to alien vessels through the nebula's energy storms. His Marines risked their lives to evacuate wounded alien crew members who could not be transported by normal means. Lieutenant Colonel Adams coordinated the overall rescue effort, directing human ships to positions where they could protect the maximum number of alien vessels. Her tactical brilliance turned a chaotic evacuation into an organized withdrawal. Dr. Clark worked frantically with veterinary scientists, sharing human technological insights to help shut down the ancient defense systems. He gave away secrets that had taken humans centuries to discover, all to save lives. Dr. Clark asked the veterinary scientist working beside him, "Why are you helping us?" "We came here to test your weaknesses." Clark looked up from his work, sweat beading on his forehead. "That is what humans do. We help each other survive." The effort to stop the ancient weapons required cooperation between human and alien technology. Clark's team had to merge their adaptive systems with alien computational networks, creating a hybrid solution that neither species could have achieved alone. The shutdown sequence requires simultaneous input from multiple ship types. Clark explained over the communication network. Humans and aliens must work together, or everyone dies. For the first time in 500 years, human and alien crews worked side by side. The ancient systems, designed to destroy any life form that entered the nebula, finally began to power down as the combined effort succeeded. As the last weapon shut down and the nebula returned to its natural state, Admiral Zinthara's voice came over the communication system. "All human vessels. This is Admiral Zinthara. We owe you our lives," Colonel Kim responded from the Lightning's bridge. "Admiral, we did what any civilized beings would do. We helped our neighbors. Even though we came here to find ways to defeat you." Kim paused, considering her words carefully. Admiral, the measure of a species is not how they treat their friends, but how they treat those who oppose them. Today, you learn that humans fight hardest to protect others. The rescued alien crews reported the same story throughout their fleets. When death threatened, the humans had not hesitated to risk everything to save their former enemies. Legendary human courage was real, but it came with something the legends had not mentioned: boundless compassion. As both fleets prepared to leave the Kepler Nebula, Dr. Clark made one final transmission to his alien colleagues. The ancient ones who built those weapons were like us, working together across species lines. Perhaps that is a lesson we should all remember. The exercise had been designed to test human military capabilities. Instead, it had revealed something far more important: the true nature of the species that had become legend among the stars. The first alarm came from the outer colonies. Captain Linda Hayes was delivering supplies to Mining Station 7 when her ship's sensors went crazy. Something was happening to the miners down on the planet. They were acting strange, building things they shouldn't know how to build. Admiral Ryan Carter got the report while he was talking to the Galactic Council. He stopped mid-sentence and listened to his communication officer. His face went pale. This was what they had feared most. The sleeper agents were waking up. All across the galaxy, ordinary people suddenly remembered things they had never learned. A shopkeeper on the Alteri homeworld started drawing blueprints for massive machines. A teacher on the Corvani capital began speaking in languages that didn't exist. Families watched in horror as their loved ones changed before their eyes. Commander, Zara Vex was on her flagship when her second-in-command, Lieutenant Goron, walked onto the bridge. She had known Goron for 10 years. They had fought side by side in 3 wars, but now his eyes were different. Cold. Empty. Commander, Goron said in a voice that wasn't quite his own. I need to tell you something important. Before Vex could respond, Goron pulled out a weapon she had never seen before. It hummed with dark energy. Other crew members on the bridge started acting the same way. Half her crew had become something else overnight. Admiral Carter's voice came over the ship's communication system. He was talking to every ship in the fleet at once. All vessels, we have a code black situation. The Void Hunter's sleeper agents are active. Anyone acting strange should be contained immediately. Do not harm them if you can help it. They are still your friends and family underneath. Captain Steve Morgan was already moving his fortress ship toward the Alteri system. His massive vessel could bend space around itself, making it arrive faster than should be possible. He had fought the Void Hunters for 1,000 years. He knew what was coming next. On Alteri Prime, the planet's surface was changing. The sleeper agents were building transmission towers that grew from the ground like twisted trees. The towers pulsed with sickly light and made sounds that hurt to hear. Dr. Keth Morlon watched from orbit as his peaceful world became something from a nightmare. Chief Engineer Maria Santos was working with Alteri scientists when the towers appeared. She had seen this before, during the long war in the void. The towers were calling something from the dark spaces between galaxies. They had maybe 6 hours before the first Void Hunter scouts would arrive. We need to destroy those towers, Santos told the Alteri engineers. But normal weapons won't work. They exist partially outside our reality. Alteri were good with technology, but they had never seen anything like this. Their most powerful weapons just passed through the towers, like they weren't there. Only human weapons could touch them. And there weren't enough human ships to cover every world. On the Corvani homeworld, Commander Vex was fighting her own crew. And the other affected officers had taken over half the ship.
They weren't
trying to kill anyone? Just stop them from interfering with something important. Vex realized they were heading toward the planet's surface, where more towers were growing. She managed to send a message to the human ships nearby. Captain Morgan's voice came back immediately. We're coming, Commander. Hold them off as long as you can. But Morgan's ship was 3 systems away, and the towers were almost finished. Vex could see Void Hunter scouts beginning to materialize in space around the towers. They looked like ships, but ships designed by something that had never been alive. They moved in ways that made no sense. Bending and twisting through space. Admiral Carter was coordinating the defense from 17 different battles at once. Every major world in the galaxy was under attack. The humans had good ships and weapons, but they were spread too thin. They needed help from the other species, but most alien weapons couldn't even touch the Void Hunters. That's when diplomatic attached Ben Torres had an idea. He was working with refugees from affected worlds when he noticed something. The sleeper agents weren't completely gone. Sometimes, for just a moment, they would act like themselves again. The original person was still in there fighting. Torres contacted Dr. Morlin, who was studying the Void Hunter technology from his research ship. Doctor, what if we don't need to destroy the towers? What if we can turn them off from the inside? Morlin understood immediately. The sleeper agents were connected to the towers. If they could reach the real person inside each agent, maybe they could break the connection. It was dangerous, but it might work. Commander Vex volunteered to try first. She cornered Goran in the ship's engine room while human ships fought Void Hunter scouts outside. Instead of fighting him, she started talking about their shared memories, their first mission together. It's a time he saved her life during the border wars, his daughter's birthday party. For a moment, Goran's eyes cleared. Commander, he said in his normal voice. What's happening to me? Fight it, Vex told him. Remember who you are. All across the galaxy, friends and family members were having the same conversations. On Alteri Prime, a mother was talking to her son who had been building tower components. On the mining worlds, supervisors were reminding their workers about their real lives. It was working but slowly. The Void Hunter scouts were getting stronger, and more were arriving every minute. Captain Morgan's fortress ship was fighting dozens of enemy vessels at once. His reality-bending weapons were keeping them back. But he couldn't be everywhere. Chief Engineer Santos made a desperate decision. She took her ship directly to the largest transmission tower on Alteri Prime. The tower was protected by Void Hunter technology, but Santos had been fighting these things for centuries. She knew their weaknesses. Her ship crashed into the tower's base, and Santos climbed out wearing a special suit that let her exist partially outside normal space. It was dangerous technology that could kill her if used too long, but it was the only way to reach the tower's core. Inside the tower, Santos found something horrible and sad at the same time. The sleeper agents weren't just building the towers, they were part of them. Their minds were being used as living computers to call the Void Hunters home. But Santos could also see that Torres was right. The real people were still there, trapped and scared. She started disconnecting them one by one, freeing their minds from the Void Hunter control. On the Corvani homeworld, Commander Vex watched as more of her crew remembered who they were. Goran was crying as he realized what he had been doing. I'm sorry, Commander, I couldn't stop myself. It's not your fault, Vex told him. Now help me save our world. The towers were shutting down one by one as people across the galaxy broke free from Void Hunter control. But the scouts that had already arrived weren't going away. They were still dangerous, still trying to establish a foothold in normal space. Admiral Carter gathered every ship that could fight. Human vessels worked alongside Corvani battleships, Alteria science vessels, and even converted cargo haulers. The combined fleet was huge, but the Void Hunters were unlike any normal enemy. The final battle happened everywhere at once. Captain Morgan's fortress ship anchored the defense of 3 star systems, simultaneously using its space-bending technology. Commander Vex led Corvani ships in desperate charges against Void Hunter scouts, her weapons upgraded with human technology. Dr. Morlin discovered the key to victory in his research. The Void Hunters were powerful, but they couldn't exist in normal space for long without the transmission towers. With the towers offline, they were slowly weakening. It took 6 hours of constant fighting, but eventually the last Void Hunter scout faded away like a bad dream. The galaxy was safe, but the cost had been high. Whole cities had been damaged by the towers. Families were torn apart by what their loved ones had been forced to do. Admiral Carter didn't claim victory for humanity. Instead, he praised every species that had fought. We couldn't have won this alone, he told the reformed Galactic Council. The Void Hunters were defeated by all of us working together. Commander Vex found herself working closely with human officers to rebuild damaged worlds. She had learned that being strong meant more than having the best weapons. It meant protecting others, even when it cost you everything. The war was over, but the galaxy was changed forever. Human ships now patrolled alongside alien vessels. Human technology was shared freely with anyone who wanted to learn. Most importantly, everyone now understood that some threats were too big for any one species to face alone. Years later, Commander Vex would tell young officers about the day the humans returned. "They didn't come back to rule us," she would say. "They came back to save us. And in doing so, they taught us how to save ourselves."